WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and 1 o'clock in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasted on 94.9 FM in Dakar and online on WADR.org. First, our top stories. External sessions of ECOWAS Court of Justice gets underway in Conakry to review regional litigation cases. Federal High Court in Nigeria sentences a former minister to 75 years in prison over misappropriation of $25 million. Malian traders and transports raise alarm over worsening impact of terrorist road blockades leading to Bamako.
Products are being imported under extreme difficult conditions. Vehicle owners refuse to send their trucks because they fear they will be burned by terrorists.
And President Diomaye Faye of Senegal postpones May 28th National Dialogue Day in observance of Eid al-Adha. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
On the news, this is a more edit.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. Let's begin in Guinea as external sessions of the ECOWAS Court of Justice continue today. The initiative, which began on Wednesday, seeks to raise awareness among the public and institutional stakeholders about the mission, jurisdiction, and functioning of the regional court. During its stay in Conakry, the court will examine more than 20 cases, mainly involving alleged human rights violation within the West African community space. Augustine Kohli has more details in this report.
For the first time, Guinea is hosting an outreach section of the ECOWAS Court of Justice, bringing the regional court closer to citizens and institutions in Conakry. The event has drawn journalists, security personnel, civil society groups, lawyers, and law students for a series of technical discussions, public forums, and presentations highlighting the mandate and operations of the regional court. According to Dr. Yausa Urosama, Chief Registrar of the ECOWAS Court of Justice, the initiative is designed to deepen public understanding of the institution and its role within the sub-region.
Although the court has existed since 2001, many citizens within the community are still unaware of its existence, its mandate, its jurisdiction, its procedures and its practices. The most prominent mandate of the ECOWAS Court of Justice is related to human rights.
Guinea's Minister of Justice and Human Rights, Ibrahima Sori II Tonkara, and the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mohamed Yula, both praised the decision to hold a session in Conakry, while reaffirming Guinea's commitment to ECOWAS and its regional institutions.
Holding this court session outside the headquarters is a clear evidence of ECOWAS' commitment to bringing community justice closer to Guinean citizens. It also reflects legal integration within our sub-regional space. Our community institutions must remain instruments of stability. The Republic of Guinea reaffirms its commitment to the ideals of justice and integration championed by ECOWAS.
The ECOWAS Court says the outreach session forms part of broader efforts to increase citizens' access to regional justice and raise awareness of the court's activities across member states.
A report by Chena Ephraim Abraude in Conakry and presented by Augustine Kohli. In neighboring Liberia, the Minister of Justice has defended the government anti-corruption drive following a split verdict in the high-profile $6 million corruption case involving former officials of ex-President George Weah's administration. While some defendants were acquitted and others convicted, the trial has reignited national debate over accountability, transparency, and the management of public funds. However, during the trial, the Supreme Court ruled that neither claims of national security nor presidential orders can protect public officials from persecution. As Abraham Parker reports, the case stems from alleged financial mismanagement that dates back to 2023.
Liberia's Justice Minister Osfor Toye defended the government's hindering of a high-profile corruption case involving the alleged diversion of more than $6 million and over $1 billion Liberian dollars in public funds. Speaking for the first time after the verdict in the case, Republic of Liberia versus Samuel D. Toye, the minister responded to criticism following the acquittal of former Finance Minister Samuel Toye and Moses Cooper, while 3 others were convicted by criminal court C.
I am keenly aware that this outcome has produced mixed reactions. Some voices are describing it as a loss for the government, focusing heavily on the acquittal. The war against corruption is not decided by a single bullet. It is decided by the strength of our institutions and by the message we send to every public servant, past and present.
The Justice Minister also revealed that an initial review has been launched to assess the investigation and the prosecution process for future cases.
Moving forward, the next steps. The 2 defendants found guilty by the jury, that's the Unity Twine, Mr. Jefferson Kamo, who will be filing resistance to the motion for new trial. The judge will assign the motion for new trial for hearing. If the judge denies the motion for new trial, he will schedule a date for judgment and sentencing of the defendant.
Meanwhile, the convicted individuals, Yanti Twine and Jefferson Kamo, have reportedly filed for a retrial. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
Still on legal matters, but this time in Nigeria, as the Federal High Court in the nation's capital, Abuja, has sentenced former Minister of Power Saleh Maman to 75 years imprisonment over a 33.8 billion naira fraud case. The $25 million scam revolves around work on 2 Nigeria's hydroelectric power plants during Maman's time in office. Observers and public affairs commentators describe the ruling as the most significant conviction involving a top former government official in recent years. WDR's correspondent Yechinu Sasechu completes the story.
Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court Abuja convicted the former minister on charges bordering on money laundering and diversion of public funds brought against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The charges stem from the alleged misappropriation of funds earmarked for the Mambila hydroelectric power project in Taraba State and the Zungeru power project in Niger State during his tenure in office. The court also ordered the forfeiture of properties and foreign currencies traced to the former minister. Legal practitioner Justice Ojeno explained that the prosecution relied heavily on financial records, traced transactions, and other evidence presented during the trial.
Yes, there has been a solid case presented against him. I think there were 14 witnesses from the prosecution, and Mr. Oyedepo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, did a good case on behalf of the EFCC.
He added that the conviction sends a strong message about accountability in public office and the consequences of abuse of power. The court handed down the sentence to Saleh Maman in absentia, but directed security agencies to ensure the enforcement of the judgment. The conviction comes amid growing calls for stronger anti-corruption measures and transparency in the management of public resources. For WADR, Yechinu Sasetu in Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Well, we'll cross over now to the Sahel, precisely Mali, where several weeks after the April 25 coordinated attacks, businesses and households in Bamako continue to struggle from the impact of the insurgency. The latest measure by the JNRM armed group is the imposition of roadblocks leading to the capital city. Sources in Bamako say several passenger buses and freight have been attacked or set on fire since last month, severely disrupting the supply of consumer goods. On Wednesday, WDR was at the Medina Kura market to gather reactions from traders, drivers, and customers who describe a new economic reality marked by financial losses, rising prices, and essentially the fear of death on the roads. Abdullah Hassan completes the story.
Just around midday at the Medina Kora market in Bamako, a few trucks arriving from Côte d'Ivoire and Sikasso are being unloaded under the watchful eyes of traders. Sitting under a tent, this avocado importer from Côte d'Ivoire is unloading his goods. He spent 3 days on the road before reaching Bamako due to the blockade imposed on the Malian capital by JNIM fighters.
I left Côte d'Ivoire just yesterday with goods. The last time was extremely difficult. On April 25, terrorists blocked the road for 3 days, making it impossible to transport our products to Bamako. I lost almost most of the avocados I was carrying, valued around 4 million CFA francs. We are trying to recover little by little, but it's not easy because customers are becoming scarce.
Around him, other traders speak of increasingly difficult supply conditions due to the country's security situation. Currently, goods are arriving several days late, causing transport costs to rise sharply. For drivers, each trip is now a source of concern. Arriving from Sikasso, this truck driver describes the difficulties he faced on the road.
The road linking Sikasso to Bamako is very dangerous, and some drivers are afraid to use it. Sometimes, terrorists block the road for the entire day, but when Malayan military patrols arrive, they disappear. While traveling yesterday, I saw at least 3 vehicles burned along the roadside. But fortunately, we did not encounter the attackers ourselves. We are really afraid. Often we travel without assistance, and every joining on that road comes with huge risks.
Despite the difficulties, trucks carrying goods continue to arrive in the Malian capital. However, in the market, traders and customers are anxiously watching the situation unfold. There are fears that further deterioration in road situation could trigger price spikes or shortages in the coming weeks.
WDL's Aliu Cham in Bamako filed the report and voiced by Abdullah Hassan. President Adama Barrow of the Gambia has received Senegal's newly appointed Chief of Defense Staff, Admiral Wadr, at the State House in Banjul. The visit marks Admiral Wad's first official trip abroad since taking office and is aimed at strengthening bilateral cooperation between the Gambia and Senegal. President Barrow welcomed the choice of the Gambia as the Admiral's first foreign destination, describing it as a reflection of the strong historical and cultural ties between the two neighbors. He stressed the importance of dialogue and regular consultations in promoting peace, stability, and continued collaboration, while also commending progress made on border relations. For his part, Admiral Wadr thanked the Gambian leader for the warm reception and reaffirmed his commitment to strengthening peace and cooperation between the two countries. In the meantime, the Gambian government says it has surpassed President Adama Barrow's target of creating 150,000 jobs between 2023 and 2026. A new labor market report released on Wednesday shows that more than 163,000 jobs were created within the period. The report also indicates a steady improvement in employment, with labor force participation rising from 43.6% in 2023 to 54.5% in 2026. But amidst a rise in criminal activities and a surge in irregular migration trend, and the report faces scrutiny. Well, let's now join Sanklo Janko for the story.
The study, prepared by the Gambia Bureau of Statistics in partnership with government ministries and international partners, predicts the gains to post-pandemic economic recovery, investments in key sectors, and ongoing economic reforms. The report also shows that unemployment dropped from 7.6% to 6.2%, while underemployment declined significantly in a country with a population size of around 2.8 million. Authorities say the results reflect the government's focus on industrialization, skills development, women's empowerment, rural development, and stronger social protection programs. However, despite these gains, the Gambia is facing growing concern over a rise in crime, particularly cases involving theft, robbery, drug-related offences and youth violence. Residents in parts of the country have raised the alarm over increasing insecurity, with calls for stronger policing and tougher measures against criminal networks. The issue has also sparked a debate over unemployment and economic hardship, especially among young people, with analysts warning that social and economic pressures could further fuel crime if not addressed.
Thankfully, Janko filed that report. Back here in Senegal, the presidency has announced the postponement of the National Dialogue Day, earlier set for May 28. In a statement, the presidency explained that the postponement was due to its proximity to the Tabaski or Eid Adha celebration. According to the government, the Islamic celebration is a period marked by important family commitments for many Senegalese citizens. Details with Francis Boniface.
President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has decided on an exceptional basis to replace this major national gathering with a series of limited consultations. According to the presidency, these discussions will take place from May 21 to May 31, 2026. The president will receive several high-level personalities as well as representatives of key national stakeholders to discuss national cohesion and the overall situation in the country. The authorities also highlighted the president's commitment to dialogue and inclusiveness in the management of public affairs. Last year, Senegal held a national dialogue focused on the political system. The discussions covered several key reforms, including electoral sponsorship, a single ballot paper, the status of the opposition, and automatic voter registration. Through these new consultations, Senegalese authorities aim to continue the spirit of dialogue initiated since President Bassirou Diomaye Faye came to power.
Francis Boniface with that report. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. External sessions of ECOWAS Court of Justice gets underway in Conakry to review regional litigation cases. A federal high court in Nigeria sentences a former minister to 75 years in prison over misappropriation of $25 million. Malian traders and transporters raise alarm over worsening impact of terrorist road blockades leading to Bamako. And President Diomaye Faye of Senegal postpones May 28 National Dialogue Day in observance of Eid Adha. Ahead in the news, we have a political think tank in Ghana urging non-renewal old Goldfields Takwa mining lease after 2027 expiration date. And we do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports updates. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org, Facebook and YouTube. Elsewhere in Ghana, policy think tank, the Institute of Economic Affairs, is calling on the government not to renew Goldfields Takwa mining lease when it expires in 2027. The group says the move would allow Ghana to strengthen local ownership in the mining sector and gain greater control over its mineral resources. The IEA argues that increased Ghanaian participation in strategic mineral assets is key to boosting long-term economic growth and reducing dependence on foreign support. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadi Detete reports.
The debate over the future of the Takwa mine is gaining momentum as the 2027 expiration date for Goldfields mining lease draws closer, with growing calls for Ghana to secure a greater stake in the country's extractive industry. Speaking at a press conference in Accra, former Chief Justice and IEA Fellow Sophia Kufu said Ghana should place national interest at the center of decisions involving strategic resources.
We are convinced that genuine national ownership and prudent management of Ghana's mineral resources would generate far greater financial, economic, industrial, and national security benefits than the outdated royalty-based arrangements that continue to favor foreign-dominated concessionary systems.
The IEA argues that extending the lease beyond 2027 would not serve Ghana's long-term economic interests and could weaken efforts to increase indigenous participation in the extractive industry. The comments come after Goldfields confirmed it had applied for a 20-year extension to continue operations at the Takwa mine, which remains one of the company's major global assets. Former Speaker of Parliament, Professor Aaron Michael Quay, backed calls for a review of existing arrangements, arguing that Ghana is in a strong position to negotiate terms that deliver greater economic returns to the country.
This is the time to walk the talk we will respectfully tell our government and all those in authority, including the members of parliament, etc.
The IEA maintains that deeper Ghanaian participation in the mining sector is critical to reducing external dependence and driving long-term economic transformation. For WADR, Nadi Titi, Accra.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, we'll remain in Accra with Nadi Titi for the newspaper review.
Greetings, welcome to the newspaper review segment. We'll start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper front page. Government bans raw rubber exports, and it takes effect immediately and is supposed to stay in force for 10 years. Also here, President Mahama commissions nuclear scan facility for the Ghana National Association of Teachers, and GES urges public to report exam malpractice on hotlines. Now to the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Double track system to end in 2027. Government secures 300 million facility to upgrade 50 senior high schools. Other stories here. Asantehene commends Get Fund for bringing KNUST teaching hospital vision to life, and 300 Ghanaians to be evacuated. That's according to the Foreign Affairs Minister. The Chronicle newspaper front page, anti-corruption group demands answers over release of 236 ECG containers. The exclusive newspaper, DVLA introduces clone detection technology for vehicle checks. And Ghana and EU strengthen golden partnership. That's it for the exclusive newspaper. Now to the Business and Financial Times, BNFT. Imported turmeric records 55.56% in lead contamination. Also here, economic activity expands by 7.7% in February. Now to the Daybreak newspaper, public officers to be surcharged for blocking requests. That's according to Right to Information Commission. The Daily Searchlight newspaper, government is using state agencies against NPP. Baumia alleges coordinated crackdown on opposition as tensions rise over free speech and political intimidation. Also here, Asante Achim North MP detained at Amsterdam Airport. That's it for the newspaper review segment. Is back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Nadi Titi there with the newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Our guest this afternoon is Tiawan Kongolo, a rights activist and anti-graft campaigner in Liberia. He joins us with analysis and better understanding of the face-up between a group of civil society actors and the Ministry of Justice over the recent convictions of former officials under the immediate past administration. But in a ruling by a criminal court in Monrovia, the principal accused person, who was the former finance minister, was acquitted, sparking a wave of protest and speculation of complexity in justice. However, in an address on Wednesday, Justice Minister Oswald Twe defended the government's anti-graft measures but said an investigation will be launched to review the matter. But is this convincing enough for transparency and accountability? Advocate, here is Tiawan Kongole.
Yesterday, I was lecturing at the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission on how to prepare a good anti-corruption case. Don't rush with it. It's not based on public pressure. It should not be a political action. It must be guided by the law and the evidence. Once the jurors do not feel that a good case has been established normally, they will not find the accused guilty. In this case, they found 3 persons guilty and 2 persons not guilty. That is not strange. It happens. I prosecuted 11 persons before in a military trial for attempting to overthrow government, and 4 of them were generals. 2 of the generals were acquitted, and the 9 were found guilty. So this has happened. What needs to be looked at is whether or not the state established a good case and whether or not the defense had a strong defense. But nobody can question the jury when the jury reaches its decision unless you can prove that there was something unethical about the process. But even then, that has to be raised before the case ends.
That said, the Minister of Justice, Oswald, has promised that the government, through the ministry, will revisit the process from the very start through the court, and that could be part of efforts now to prove to the public that indeed the government is head-on with the fight against corruption. Do you think this will restore in any way public trust and confidence in the system?
That's a bit difficult. I can understand where he's coming from, and as a strong anti-corruption campaigner myself, and having worked at the same justice ministry and being frustrated in the anti-corruption fight myself, because I was the first Solicitor General to prosecute a former head of state for corruption. I was the late Judith Bryan. We were equally disappointed, but the law is the law. We have clear procedures. The state cannot appeal. We also have a strong law backed by the Constitution, Article 21(h), that prohibits double jeopardy, that you cannot prosecute the same person twice for the same offense or punish one person twice for the same offense. That law is very strong. It comes from the common law. So as much as the Justice Ministry want to do anything, it has to be consistent with the Constitution and the criminal procedure law of Liberia.
That was Tiawan Gongule, a rights activist and anti-graft campaigner in Liberia. And in sport news, we do have Sankle Danku joining us here. Sankle, welcome. Let's begin with the Athletic Championship in Accra, where Nigeria won a first gold medal. Tell us about that.
Yes, before we come to Nigeria, you're right there. Let's begin with the men's 100 meters athletics, because Cameroon's Emmanuel SM has claimed his first continental title after winning the men's 100 meters at the 2026 African Athletics Championship, like you rightly said, in Accra. Well, the 32-year-old powered to victory ahead of South Africa's Bradley Nkoa, who took silver, while Nigeria's Chidere Ekezo secured bronze to complete the podium. That is for the male category.
And then for the female.
And of course, for the female, like you said, Toby Musan has secured Nigeria's first gold in the medal of the 2026 African Championship in Accra, winning the women's 100-meter hurdles in 12.83 seconds. While the world record holder claimed her third straight continental title, continuing her dominance in the event, adding to Nigeria's medal tally at the championship. So far, it looks like Nigeria is leading the podium.
Well, there was an interesting commentary, which is trending online about this race, how the commentator thought maybe the Ghana was going to win the race, and then all of a sudden,
that's the beauty.
Toby Amusan was off.
Whenever you have Nigeria and Ghana, that's the beauty.
It was quite interesting, and that's trending online.
Yes, it's trending online because, of course, like you said, Ghana thought they were going to cling this particular category ahead of Nigeria.
Let's talk football now.
Yes, football.
Under 17 AFCON is on.
Absolutely, Imo.
Tell us about that.
Host country Morocco were held to a 1-1 draw by Tunisia in their opening match at the 2026 AFCON, while Uganda secured an impressive 3-0 victory over DR Congo. Of course, Morocco and Tunisia, that was called the Maghreb Derby. It ended in a 1-1 draw. Very interesting time.
And we do have rugby. You have time for rugby to tell us?
Oh, no, we don't have time for rugby. Unfortunately, in our subsequent edition, we'll bring rugby, because Ivory Coast have also done well alongside Morocco. But we'll bring up those updates later in the subsequent bulletins.
Sankle Janko, thank you so much for the sport update. And that's it on this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Ismaila Kamara and Mustafa Seka for the technical support. Let's keep the conversation coming on all of our social media platforms, X, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. Coming up is a repeat broadcast of our environment program, Enviroscope. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Graft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.